everybody. Welcome back to the School on a Boat podcast, where we talk about the sweet life on deck and other things. I have a very interesting energy today for this video, specifically because I'm back from winter vacation. I went to go visit my dad, which was a very rejuvenating experience. But also, I completely rearranged my room, and I'm actually recording this on the same day that I uploaded the previous episode. I'm going to try and record a little bit later. I'm not going to try and record on the same day that I upload, but that's just kind of how I ended up working out today. So we're here to finally finish discussing the Cody Bailey relationship arc throughout The Sweet Life on Deck. I also wanted to give a little bit of a retrospective on the Cody Bailey relationship, because I didn't realize that after the Twister 3-parter, once I decided to make the Twister 3-parter its own episode, all on its own after discussing the first half of season 3, well, what I thought was the first half of season 3, what I then realized very quickly was that actually it's not half of the show. It's like the very end. It's more like 3/4, you know? So after the Twister 3-parter, we only have 3 more episodes left, and then the show is over. Like, numbers-wise, that kind of, the split ends up working out to where, like, it feels more divided, but in actuality, there isn't much Cody Bailey in the last 3 episodes, because it's kind of wrapping up everything else, right? Like, the finale, of course, is wrapping up everyone's character arc, so we have multiple things that we're dealing with, and then same thing with the prom episode, and the sort of filler Snakes on a Boat episode is very interesting, and those are the last 3 episodes we had to talk about, because then, of course, we'll circle back around. But before we get into all of that, I'm just like so excited to be filming the podcast again. I had so much fun starting it back in August, and I think I want to be more consistent with it. I think I want to like get back into the groove of like really uploading this podcast. So I'm thinking we're going to try and stick within the realm of every other week. And if I'm feeling a little jazzy, once a week. And I think we're just going to be on Tuesdays. So my previous episode, I uploaded on Tuesday, and we're going to try and stay pretty consistent with that going forward. So I also want to kind of like chat a little bit more with you guys, talk about my life a little bit more at the beginning, do just like a little bit more housekeeping before we talk about the subjects themselves, if y'all don't mind. Because overall, these episodes are not like deeply scripted and thought out. I have bullet point notes and such, but they're not super like deeply thought out and scripted. They are a little bit more on the cuff thoughts that I've still like, developed a lot of, but they're not like scripted word for word like my normal videos are, right? And so that the whole nature of that means that sometimes to like make sure the episode is at adequate length, I feel like I've talked to it slowly or a bit like awkwardly. I've kind of like circled around things, and so I'm going to try and tighten up my discussion a little bit and let you guys know about how I'm doing. So yeah, I'm back from winter break, which is very, very nice. Like I said at the beginning, I rearranged my entire room because I wanted a new energy for the new year, 2026. It's mid-January at the time that I'm recording and uploading this, and I specifically was noticing that I was having a hard time filming YouTube videos in my previous setup. I just didn't have a good setup, and I'm still working on it right now, which is why I'm here at my desk. Normally I have like a little corner of my room that I record at, and it's still extremely chaotic, and honestly still has the Christmas decorations up, which I just haven't taken those down yet, but I'm working on that. That's like one big priority that I'm going to do in the next few days. I'm going to get that recording session, like little setup going, and then you guys can see it hopefully next episode. We'll have to see how I get that done. But right now I'm just at my computer desk. So other than that, that's been pretty fun. And some of my goals for 2026, I usually don't set like New Year's resolutions or like huge 2026 goals, because I just feel like I can make a change in my life at any point during the year. But I specifically have found like a sort of transition period for my channel right now, or not really like transition period, but more of like a a moment to kind of evolve and up the quality of the content. So I'm really gonna like start now in January because it's the time to be doing so. Kind of like push the channel in a good direction, because I feel like I knew what I was doing at the beginning of last year in 2025, because I was working on the DCOM series where I ranked and reviewed every Disney Channel original movie, all 120 of them. So I was like, that is what I'm doing. Like, I am just doing that. And so for the first half of the year, that's all I was doing. And so then I think for the last 6 months or so, like by August, I was feeling a little bit directionless. Also, I completely upended my entire everything with 5 Sauce, which I'm not going to be ranting about as much. For those of you who have subscribed to the side channel and you saw me upload some 5 Sauce stuff and you maybe unsubscribed, don't worry. I got it all out of my system. I got like 2 more 5 Sauce videos left in me, and then that's pretty much it. I'll probably still talk about it, but I'm going to kind of well up that energy I have for 5 Sauce, 5 Seconds of Summer, for those who don't know the band, and kind of like put it in other places, you know? I'm gonna try and really tighten up and focus up the channel, because that is just what's exciting me right now. I will only ever do what makes me excited and interested and happy, and that idea of like really focusing the channel on like a specific energy and vibe and niche is what's exciting me right now. So yeah. You know what doesn't excite me though? The fact that I almost broke my foot a couple days ago. Okay, so let me give some context. I didn't like that is like that's a very YouTuber like sting, like ooh, like gotcha kind of storytime YouTuber title. My foot was fine. I didn't do anything too bad to it. But what I did do was I dropped my laptop on it. It's so silly. Sorry, that was my Hotmail going off. Let me put that off. Outlook, it's called Outlook now. Anyways, I don't use that, but for school we have to use it. Anyways, I recently have been recording a bunch of footage for my Good Luck Charlie video, which actually, it might be up by the time this podcast episode comes out. I'm not too sure. I'll have to see. We'll have to see if everything works out right. But a Good Luck Charlie video is very, very far into production right now. So around 2 weeks ago, I was recording a lot of footage, and I was doing my makeup, which I rarely do for videos, but I'm trying to like kind of upgrade my my makeup skills. And so having an excuse to do makeup, which is of course, you know, how I'll learn to do it better, is the best way to do that, I think. And so filming videos has been a good excuse. Sorry, my fringe has been acting up lately, but I need to wash my hair. But yeah, doing makeup for videos has been really helping me, I think, experiment and do different things. So I was doing that, and I always have a little something playing while I'm doing stuff in the background. I specifically have been rewatching Game Grumps play Dark Souls, because I got all spooked remembering that they played that 10 years ago in 2016 specifically. So I was like, this is the 2016 playthrough. I'm gonna watch it again. And they uploaded a compilation of it on their YouTube page. So I have like a 17-hour video I can just like slowly watch as I do things, because I've already watched it, so I can have it in the background. When they're playing new video games, I try to like be attentive, you know? But anyways, well, I was watching that, and I was in my bathroom, and so I had my laptop on my bathroom countertop, and it's a decent sized countertop, but I had a bunch of stuff out, because, you know, I was using stuff, and I should really like put things back where they belong once I'm done using it. But no, I just kind of had it all splayed out. And so I was like precariously trying to like place my laptop on this very small corner of free space on the countertop, and it just fell. It fell on its side specifically. So like, you know, the laptop is like this with like the screen, and then it like fell like sideways. So it, like the corner, right at the corner of the edge of the laptop, hit me right on my foot. It just went, like, hit me exactly, pointed on my foot, and then it kind of like skidded off to the side. And I remember I didn't notice that it hurt and that it hit me in the foot until later. And then I was like, oh, that was like actually like that really hurt. Wow. I was like, whoa. I was like surprised. I thought I had just kind of like lightly tapped my foot. I didn't realize that it was like a serious deal, because I kind of just ignored it. I was like, ow, that kind of hurt. Like, you know, like if you drop your phone or something on your foot, right? That's happened probably sometimes in my life. But my laptop specifically, it's I got it like on a huge discount, a huge sale, because of my school, which was I'm very fortunate to be able to have that be the case. because I also have my main computer that I edit all my videos on. So I have a laptop for school, but because they gave it to me basically for free, it was like dead stock. So it's from 2019, which means it's like 6 years old. It was brand new when they gave it to me, but it was clearly like dead stock they just had like in a warehouse. So it's thick. It's heavy is what I mean by that, is that it's like not the thin, sleek laptops that we have today, or like a Chromebook or whatever. No, like it's a thick, chunky, old school laptop that I just absolutely crunched my foot with. So it's been like almost 3 weeks now, and my foot is still injured. I can still walk just fine. It's never impaired my walking. Just for a couple of days there, it was really sore. Like I could just feel, like if I was wearing shoes specifically, I could just like, it just felt a little bit sore. It was on the top of my foot, not the bottom. So, you know, I could still walk and stuff. But yeah, it has like a massive bruise. Basically the whole top of my foot is bruised, and it was actually swollen for like 2 or 3 days. I was surprised. Again, I didn't even really notice that it hurt. It didn't really hurt too much. So I was surprised at just how injured it was. I was like, geez, you're being a bit dramatic here. But anyways, that has been a great start to the year. Oh, I have a candle going. I meant to have it face the right way. I got this candle for Christmas from friend of the channel, Sal. I have another podcast. I have 2. You can't just have one podcast, gotta have 2. It's the first one that I've had for years now. Like literally, it's gonna be the 4-year anniversary of the podcast is going to be in February. It's coming up very soon. And it was our My Babysitter's a Vampire podcast where we reviewed every episode. We're now doing Gravity Falls, and we don't do it too frequently because they're like busy people with real corporate jobs and stuff, and I'm a silly person who talks to a camera, so we live in different cities now. So we don't get to meet up too often to make podcast episodes for Gravity Falls, but that still exists. It's the Vampy Wampy Campy podcast. Sal came up with the title and got me this wonderful candle that smells like cotton candy. That's Mabav, by the way. People say it differently. Mbav, Mabav. I say Mabav, whatever. That's it. That's my lock screen, my wallpaper. Although I have so much stuff on my home screen, you can barely tell. But anyways, yeah, it smells really great like cotton candy, and it actually looked really cute. It had like little cloud like decals on top, and I've already melted like half of it because I just love the smell of it so much. And then plus another shit start to the year. Literally, I mean that literally, like a shit start to the year. I went on vacation to go visit my dad. I went for a few weeks, which was very nice, very rejuvenating. The last podcast episode was recorded in his house, as well as all of the decom food intermissions. If that wasn't obvious, I used my father's house because I don't have a kitchen. I want one real bad, and I'm working on getting one. So I'm in a very transitional living space right now. But I went to go visit him. Very, very nice. I love seeing my dad and his dog and everything. It's a very sweet, kind of experience. But when I was gone, I left my room inactive, right? And apparently what can happen, I live in a very old building. This building was built in, I think, the 60s or the 70s. The previous dorm, where I recorded like basically all of my original videos in, was literally built in the 40s. So I thought this would be an upgrade, but I've actually been having more problems with this building than that one, surprisingly enough. In this building, apparently there's been like a clog in the system. And what can happen when a toilet is inactive and there's a clog somewhere else, apparently, is what I've been told. I don't know how true this is, or if this was just an excuse they gave me or whatever for some negligence. But what happened apparently was that old sewage got pushed up into my toilet from somebody else's in the building, or from just like a general blockage in the building. So I'm sorry, this is really gross. Hope you're not eating while I discuss this, but there was sewage in my toilet that bubbled up pretty soon after I left. Or maybe not soon after I left, but just like at a certain point after I had left. So when I came back to my room, it smelt of sewage because there was raw sewage just sitting in my toilet for multiple weeks at minimum. Maybe like a week at most, but still, that's enough time to leave a stank. To have it permeate in everything. And I had like the windows locked and everything, everything was shut up because it was, I had everything shut down because I was gone. So yeah, that took a couple of days just to get the smell out. I've been running candles like crazy. The smell is officially gone, luckily. I still have the window cracked, just to make sure, because man, that was not a fun experience. I can tell you that much. I do not like this. No one likes the smell of sewage, but I feel like I am more perceptible than others to bad smells. I get nauseous quite quickly, so glad that that's over. But yeah, so I really thank my buddy Sal, if you're watching this. Love you, Dad. We like to call Sal Dad. Thank you for getting me this candle. I've literally burnt half of it already. It's mostly gone because I've just been having it running for hours because it's been so smelly. But anyways, and then last year, another friend of mine, a friend of ours, got me a vanilla and sandalwood candle, and that's the other one I've been running like crazy because it smells so damn good. So every Christmas I ask for candles, and I love that I get them. So speaking of good smells, I just got a whiff of this. I'm drinking Cactus Cooler. Can we get a focus on the Cactus Cooler? Look how cool it is. This is a regional drink here in the United States. They don't have it many places. And it's the best drink ever. I rarely find it. I only find it in cans in 12 packs at certain select grocery stores. I think it's a Southwestern exclusive thing, and it's only in a couple of states, I'm pretty sure. That and Manzanita Sol. That's another one that's, it's like an apple flavored soda, and I love that one. But yeah, it's only available in certain select areas. When I went to go see Five Sauce back in 2023, I promise I won't talk about Five Sauce forever, but when I went to go see them, we were like, in a different state because we traveled to a different state to go see them. And they had the apple soda there, and so I bought it and I trucked it back to my hometown because I wanted it so bad. But anyways, the Cactus Cooler is my favorite drink of all time, famously. And for some reason, like, this is the weird thing. Back in the day, the emos were so weird. So when I was in middle school and I was a little baby emo, I had a bunch of I had 4 emo friends. That was pretty much all the alternative people that was in the entire school, right? And we didn't call ourselves emo because it was seen as an insult to say you were emo. People used that as an insult towards you, but now that's just that's what we are. So for some reason we idolized Cactus Cooler as the drink for the emos. I feel like Faygo was the actual alternative kid drink, and that's probably because of Homestuck or something, which I know nothing about. Absolutely nothing about Homestuck. But Faygo is also a very rare soda that's hard to find. And I guess to make us seem cooler and different and raw XD or whatever, we settled on Cactus Cooler. So I associate Cactus Cooler, Cactus Cooler and Monster Energy drink. I think of being alternative kid drinks for some reason. It's an orange pineapple flavored soda. And it's very good. It's owned by the Dr. Pepper brand, and I famously, and early on in my channel, which wasn't even that long ago, 2023, early 2023, I don't like that you can see the back of my head, so we're just gonna make sure that's back on. But, not that it looks weird, it's just, anyways. Back in 2023, I would chug Dr. Pepper. I would drink so much Dr. Pepper and record my videos. And I stopped doing that because it's so embarrassing. I kept burping. Because fizzy drinks, at least for me, make me burp. And I switched to coffee pretty quickly. And so I mainly just drink coffee in my videos now. Occasionally water. Like in this cup, I have water. I gotta have water if I'm gonna have a non-water drink on the side. Let's talk about the Sweet Life on Deck, and let's talk about Cody and Bailey. Let's give a little retrospective on their relationship arc, because we haven't talked about season 1 or all of season 2. We've only talked about the season have talked about the season 2 finale, the breakup in Paris. What sparked this whole thing to happen in the first place was me losing my mind and spiraling over that. But the first, little idea that I wanted to talk about was just give a slight little overview of the problems in their relationship that I've already mentioned because they've come up a bunch throughout the different arcs, obviously, right? And how those are attempted to be resolved, or maybe just not attempted to be resolved and is just swept under the rug to give a happy ending, or to give another living room themed analogy, lampshaded, right? They'll just put a lampshade over it and just ignore the fact that there's this bright, obvious problem present. So I would say that each character has two defining kind of flaws, and they both have to do with centering oneself in the relationship and not considering the other person's emotions and feelings. These people are like between the ages of 15 and 17, so it's very likely that they would be doing such a thing. That's the kind of years you're like, it's almost like designed by society to be the most selfish. So I'm not gonna blame these fictional characters for behaving this way, and I'm not gonna say that they're evil and toxic or whatever, but I am just going to call it out as something that is present within their characterization. They're not real people, it's not a real relationship. We don't have to analyze it in such a way that, like, you know, we try to cancel them or something like that. So to start with Bailey, because I feel like I've dismissed her character throughout the years, just because I feel like outside of farm girl and generic smart girl, they haven't given her too much. But she's still able to kind of exist, at least in somewhat of a space, given those limited arcs, character archetypes that she's present within. The biggest thing they give Bailey in terms of her relationship with Cody, outside of your general lovey-doveyness that we see mostly through season 2, is her competitiveness. When in terms of a problem that she brings to the relationship, right? I'm not a relationship coach either. I just like close reading sitcoms. So she is always liking to compete with Cody, even when they're on a good stance and he seems to be playing along with it well. It is then later brought up in the Breakup in Paris. I'm pretty sure I mentioned this in my Breakup in Paris episode of the podcast, where I said that he is like not happy with the fact that she is constantly like one-upping him in a sense, comparing herself to him and you know, making herself seem as better. Now, I don't think this is inherently a bad thing. I think it's a problem of Cody's that he finds value in his superiority complex, like over others. He sees himself as better than other people, and that's where he finds self-value, not just in the fact that he is a human being. I think he has quite low self-esteem, which is fair enough considering the amount of shit-talking that everyone gives to each other. It's like you'd think with the amount of shit-talking everyone does that this would be their love language, but apparently it gets to these characters and they're insecure and shit, which is its own episode, honestly. And it's like, why are sitcom characters so mean to each other? You know, it's like the classic, what's his name, Doug Walker, the nostalgia critic, the classic nostalgia critic quote where it's like, well, and this is not something he invented, I want to make it very clear, but he's just the one that I think of as the archetype of like, this is all that comedy can be, and how that's a very boring and limited way to see comedy. But the idea was that comedy can only be derived from the suffering of other people. Like that's his famous quote that I think from him. And it is like almost like a general understanding in a lot of like sitcom spaces, which I could do more research on for our next podcast episode, because I would love to talk more about sitcoms. You guys know me, I'm the sitcom person. But besides all of that, Cody as a character it feels almost like emasculated in a sense when Bailey compares himself to her, and she is like, I'm better than you because of these things, and sort of competes with him. It's brought up in a more fun way in season 2 arcs, like when they do that competition to see if they can get London, who can tutor London. Cody makes a bet with Bailey to say that I bet you can't tutor London into getting a good grade in a class, and then she ends up placeboing her in sort of like a toxic way. And there's another competition, I think, with their pets. No, that's with London. But in general, Bailey is competitive, and she like one-ups people around her to I guess provide value for herself, which in a way does make sense for her character, because she wants to, you know, be smart and escape the farm life that she was given. And so does her family. Her family, they want more for her than the farm life, which is why they send her on the boat in the first place. And they work really hard to make sure she can be on the boat. Like, they're not trying to like bring her back to the farm or anything, you know? And this is really, in a very, very interesting and way that I really appreciate, is wrapped up in the finale. So the first biggest part of her competitiveness that I feel like we should talk about before we talk about the finale is the prom episode where she really, really fixates on being prom queen. She like really, really wants to be prom queen, and they make a transphobic joke. In the meantime, don't we love that? We don't. We hate that, and we want that to no longer be the case. Please and thank you. So she really wants to be prom queen, and so she kind of goes a bit overboard and just is overly obsessing about it and really pushing it on to people. And it's that obsessiveness and sort of like forwardness that gets everyone to not want to vote for her. Even her own boyfriend, Cody, doesn't vote for her. And they end up giving the vote to Miss Tutwiler anyways, just to be nice. Which maybe one day I'll make an episode about Mrs. Tutwiler and Mr. Mosby and their whole relationship. That seems like, even though that's an element of the show that I love a lot and what makes me come back to season 3 specifically, because season 3 in a lot of ways isn't like, well, as much as I love the character development, a lot of the Flanderization and the storytelling and the arcs can be a bit like the Snakes in a Boat episode is a good example. I have a fun time watching it, but I just kind of wish there was a better plot. Like, instead of, there's snakes on the boat. Like, you know, I'm not going to say that they were running out of ideas, but the creative well is not as, you know, filled. It's not as filled to the top as it used to be. It was definitely lowering at the time of the show's conclusion. But their arc, as well as Cody and Bailey's arc, are what bring me back to that final season so much, as well as Zach and Maya, which are going to get their own episodes. They just are, because I have so many thoughts on Maya specifically, and I would love to just like make a whole episode where I talk about their relationship. And I talked about it in my original Sweet Life on Deck deep dive video, but I just wasn't prepared enough to just like fully just really unpack that. That video could have been 5 hours long if I was able to be doing something like that. But I was also moving for the first time out of my father's house and to college for the first time while I was making that video. So it took me 5 months, and I barely scratched the surface of all the things I wanted to talk about. So that's what this is for. And that's what we're doing right now. Like I gave Bailey like a little 3-minute segment and said, there's nothing to say about Bailey. And here I am talking about Bailey for so much longer. So, as we were saying, her competitiveness is kind of a problem in their relationship generally. And yes, a lot of it has to do with Cody's problems as well, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. But just in general, that's a sort of rift in their relationship that I noticed. And when we get to the Yale storyline is really where I start to see it sort of bubble back up in a very interesting way. So this is something I feel like they always had planned for Cody, even if they didn't know it was going to be related to his girlfriend. But they both apply to go to Yale, you know, an Ivy League school, Cody and Bailey, and Bailey gets in and Cody does not. Now, this is like a huge life-altering, like shattering moment for Cody, because his whole personality and life was based around being the smartest person in the room. What happens when he puts all of his value into being smart, and that smartness being rewarded and recognized through getting into this specific school? Can't be Harvard, because he shit-talked the dean of administrations at Harvard and screwed around with his daughter, so he ain't never getting into Harvard. So that's why he focuses then on Yale. And then he doesn't get into Yale either. I don't even think he gets waitlisted. He just like doesn't get in, which is wild. This whole storyline is brought up and attempted to resolve in one episode, but of course, you know, there's still much more open-endedness for the characters, and I know that's because from an interview that Dylan Sprouse made when he was in college for like to help out with one of his classmates like project or something, he kind of explained why the finale of the Sweet Life on Deck was like that, and why they ended up having a fractured relationship with Disney channels, because they basically screwed them over, and they were willing to like make more episodes of Zach and Cody basically, even after they had graduated high school themselves and were going to go off to college. They wanted to like give a little bit more of a finale for the characters and kind of pass the baton on to a new actor, but the Disney Channel screwed them over. Maybe I'll mention that a little bit later. We'll have to see. So I think there's a reason why the characters' endings are left a little bit open-ended. But even then, it still is a very satisfying conclusion, because we're not really supposed to like have a chapter of these characters' lives just be dead and done, and then that's it. Like, the characters stop existing after that. It feels like we just were able to get this window of their adolescence, and they are continuing to live as people in the modern day, you know? Like, that's fun to think about. That's what I do appreciate about open-ended finales. When, in terms of character resolution, in that sense, like, we don't know what Cody's going to be doing in the future. We don't have an idea of, like, you know, if he's going to go to college, if he's going to apply to different schools, what he's going to do in the meantime, like, but we at least got, like, the finale of, like, they graduated high school, you know, so it still feels satisfying because we got that, like, monumental moment, right? So that's a whole situation in and of itself, of course. So when it comes to Cody specifically, it really has to challenge his, like, understanding of self. Like I said, his relationship with Bailey was already doing it, and this just reinforces it further. He was already insecure at the fact that Bailey, in a lot of ways, was maybe better than him. She was getting better grades than him. They both ended up being co-valedictorian, of course, but so even if he thought that they were equals on that, you know, academic level, it reinforces his biggest insecurities, that actually he's not all that, and Bailey is better than him when she gets into the college and he doesn't, right? And also, I think it's very interesting to show just how self-satisfied he is. Not self-satisfied, but how much he values his intelligence, and how he sees it as just a given. Because when he finds out that he didn't get in, he's like, that means Bailey had no chance of getting in. And it's like, dang, he didn't even consider the fact that she might have got in and he didn't. Like, that's pretty wild. It was proof that, like, to me, you can either read it as, like, oh, he never actually thought that she was better than him, but he was just upset that she kept thinking that she was. Or you can read it as him trying to, like, mask over that insecurity, kind of put a band-aid over it. Like, no, there's no way that she's better than me. So that means that there's no way that she could have gotten in and I couldn't. And all of that artifice just comes crashing down. And, you know, to be fair, they both have pretty interesting lives. So I'd like to assume that on their, you know, like, on their essay or whatever that they turned in for their application, that, you know, like, it would be pretty interesting, because a big problem that a lot of people have when they're, like, valedictorian or, like, 4.0 or whatever, is that if they don't have any extracurriculars outside of good grades, because everyone who applies to these schools has good grades, right, they will not be seen in the crowd. The people who have more interesting backgrounds or extracurriculars will, like, float to the top. So you could see that as, like, Bailey, her story or whatever, maybe appealed more and stuff like that. Like, you could really read into it if you wanted to, but all that really matters is Bailey got in, Cody didn't, right? And again, this sort of brings up their whole arc throughout the entire series. They're all of On Deck specifically. So to speak more about Cody, I think Cody's biggest problem is that he puts his feelings over hers. He devalues her situation and reinforces his. And he does this in every situation because of the insecurity and lack of attention that he maybe gets from the world. You know, the constant judgment that he gets for being smarticle or whatever, as London would say. And this obvious superiority complex is a coping mechanism and a sort of artifice of self-confidence, because I had just said, like, oh, he's not super confident. He gets his confidence from other places, and one of those places is putting himself and his feelings, reorienting his own personal narrative over Bailey's in situations where they're supposed to be together. Like, I think of, and I'll definitely mention it when I talk about the season 2 arc, the pageant episode where Bailey wants to enter the pageant, the false pageant that Zach, Woody, and Marcus put on to try and date girls, but then they actually have to put on as punishment once they get caught by Mr. Mosby. Bailey ends up entering the pageant, and Cody, like, full-on momagers her, is like, you must do this, this, and this, and constantly makes fun of her appearance, which is not funny. It's not funny because of patriarchy and all that stuff. I wish we could make jokes like this, but just the implications of society, it doesn't play well to have this boy in this relationship be like making fun of his girlfriend's appearance and saying that she's ugly and that her teeth are ugly and so she has to wear fake teeth and that she has to have fake boobs or whatever. I think they make a joke about that. I can't remember. And I think she ends up winning. I can't remember if she ends up winning or if they end up making the joke that London actually ends up winning. Because, like, in the end, he does go, like, actually, y'all, I was being annoying and rude to my girlfriend. You should vote for her. And just doing what she wanted to do, singing a song and dressing how she wanted to dress, because she kicks him to the curb, rightfully so. And I think that's what ends up, being better for her in the end, right? So, yeah, this is how he builds his own self-confidence, is by, like, putting a front on. And in a lot of ways, I could see Bailey doing the same with her competitiveness, right? Having to be the best. Like, I will be the best at this, which means that I'm a valuable person because I'm the best at it, right? None of this is good coping mechanisms for life. You just gotta like yourself because you exist, you know what I mean? Like, come on, y'all. But again, they're teenagers, and this is a very relatable thing that people go through even throughout their adult life, so it's a fascinating arc that I like to point out, even if it's not the best way to exist in life. It's not like these characters are supposed to be role models or anything. At least for me as a grown-up, for it being a children's show can maybe muddy the waters a bit, but that's another discussion for another day. Yada yada, right? So Cody has a lot of problems. He has just so many problems, y'all. But obviously one of his main ones is the fact that, in terms of the resolution that he's supposed to have in this finale, is present. In the Snakes on a Boat episode, because I guess it does kind of matter, I guess, is the storyline where Cody feels as though he's not, he has to prove himself as funny, because when they're playing Truth or Dare, Bailey is like, I don't think you're funny. Every time you've made a joke and I've laughed, I've faked laughter. I think it's I wonder how much of this, and this is something I still struggle with, because I said they were entering like their like boring married domestic situation where they just kind of deal with each other's quirks and are like just fine with it, It kind of almost felt like a little bit like a cynical take of like long-term romance from the writer's perspective. Like, Cody has these values and has these opinions, but he gets steamrolled by his girlfriend. Or the honeymoon phase is officially over. She's no longer pretending to laugh at his jokes, which, by the way, it's a huge systemic thing, I gotta say. I don't want to get too or anything, But, like, women are trained to laugh more and be more personable towards men. It's just, respectability politics, all that junk, right? So now that they're like, together for so long and that they don't have to worry about like offending one another with these little like mundane, like not laughing at a joke you don't find funny or whatever during the whole courting or honeymoon phase and all that stuff, she can be honest and just be like, I've never thought your jokes were funny. And, that's some good, I guess, meta text, because whenever he makes a smart guy joke, a joke about that's like very like, science-y or whatever, I call them Big Bang Theory jokes, because the joke is that they said a thing that you don't get, person watching. And it's not actually funny, it's just like some science jargon. And Bailey would always laugh at them, right? And she would always be like, her. So it's like she actually didn't find those funny. And neither did the audience. So we're supposed to be laughing at the character for making that, not the actual joke itself, right? Or the witty response that someone gave, like Zach, in response to the science mumbo jumbo, right? So, this whole storyline, to me, I really struggle with it, to be like, is this something that I actually think is present within the relationship? Is this an actual like interpretation I have of how the writers were taking the characters, that they are now like in that sort of like bored domesticity stage of their relationship, I want to say no. I really do, because it doesn't feel like it doesn't sit quite right with me. It doesn't feel like, it just feel like we're not given enough time to have that be like really reoriented and established. If we had a whole episode where like that was emphasized, then maybe. But like I said, it's snakes on a boat, prom, finale, graduation, right? Like, you know, we don't get much time with their relationship because it's mostly, you know, relegated to B plots and C plots, even like runner gags and such. So I think a way that they attempted to resolve their relationship in a way was through sort of the Yale plot line, I'm gonna say. I think how they really tried to wrap up these two specific insecurities within their relationship was through this arc. So Bailey makes a very dramatic announcement during their you know, final speech, where she says that she wants to choose Yale. She wants to choose Cody over Yale. She doesn't want to go to Yale because that means she'll be away from Cody. Now, something I always thought of when watching this show was that, is Cody just going back to Boston? Because like the idea is that if he didn't get into Yale, was he just going to go back home with his mom? Because if so, which is at the hotel, right? Because if so, that's in Boston and Yale is in New York. I know nothing about the East Coast, but that's not that far. What is that, like a 1 hour drive or something like that? Like, they would be in a long distance relationship still, but they would still be like in the same area of the country, you know? It's not like she'd be going back to Kettle Corn, Kansas, and he'd be going back to Boston, right? That'd be different. Because that's like, Kansas is exactly in the middle of the country, and Boston, Massachusetts is like in the top northern, what's it called? Northeast side of the country. And Cody, for once, doesn't put himself over her. And of course it makes logical sense in this setting, right? He's gotten his pep talk from his twin brother that says, like, what matters is the fact that we are graduating high school and we should celebrate ourselves and be happy with ourselves that we're reaching this milestone in our lives. And let's not care about our little momentary hangups, like a breakup and not getting into the school we wanted to get into. Like, let's just celebrate ourselves, right? So he's kind of in that mindset of like, I'm putting myself first over these little, you know, intricacies. And he still tells Bailey, like, no, you can't, you know, throw away an opportunity like this. And you have to go to school. You have to do what's best for you and your future and your career and stuff, right? So that was really sweet. That was really cool to see that he like wanted to like put himself, his own personal emotions, because obviously it wouldn't make sense narratively. It just wouldn't. It wouldn't be satisfying if he was like, okay, let's just do whatever. Like, it doesn't make sense for him to say, fine, don't go to Yale. Like, obviously it makes sense for him to be like, no, you can't not go to Yale. But it still is notable nonetheless that like he is willing to, like, you know, prioritize her situation instead of putting himself in that place. Because a season ago, he was not doing that. And of course, it was for a less big situation. It was more small, insular situations. But nonetheless, it kind of wraps up that arc, even if it, you know, isn't necessarily showing a change of heart or a development of character. It still wraps up that. He was doing this, and now he's doing that. And that is better than this, right? And Bailey considering even not going to Yale is another element of her character that I think speaks to this. Because like I said, Bailey's whole reorientation of herself has been, I'm the best. And this is the achievement. This is the way of proving I am the best in this whole school, in this whole 7 C's high, I think is what they call it. Yeah. Is by, like, I'm valedictorian, and not only am I valedictorian because I'm sharing valedictorian with Cody, but I am the valedictorian that got into the school, and the other one didn't, which means that I'm better than him. And we see this in their fight in the breakup of Paris. She goes, if I'm so stupid, or if I'm so this, then why is my math grade better than you? Why is my science grade better than you, right? Like, she is like willing to be like, I you know, am the more superior person in the relationship. And a struggle that she had with him in the dating episode, I think, or the episode where they they get married, they play marriage and stuff, and kids and all that stuff, and Cody gets a fake injury and she has to take care of him. It's because it centers him again in the relationship, and she wants to be like, you know, the one who is more important, essentially. So this is the representation, but she wants to put Cody over herself. She wants to put Cody and her relationship with him over her girl boss self-achievement goals, because that's always been her thing. She's supposed to be like she's not like super girl bossy in the way that other characters will be like in later sitcoms on the Disney Channel, but she definitely has the inklings of that, of like, you know, she's smart and she's a career-driven person. You know, she's not all about relationships and boys or whatever, because this was seen as a derogatory thing, which it's not. We need to not judge characters for centering boys in their life, you know, but that was her whole thing, was that she was very career and education oriented. She wanted a good education so bad, and she wanted to travel the world so bad, that she was willing to pretend to be a different gender the entire time, and that's difficult. Forcing yourself to be a gender that you're not. It really is. You see the gender dysmorphia in people all the time. So she was that willing to, you know, to go to this school. So this, you would think, would be the, you know, final reorientation of that, the final representation of I am the best, and she's willing to throw it all away for Cody. She finally is centering her romantic relationship in her life, which she had never done before. And so that, in a way, ties the bow on that element of her character. But they have a conversation, a normal, calm conversation for once, of course, in front of the entire class, which, you know, is not the best time to be doing such a thing. But yes, Bailey's like, I want to choose my romantic relationship over my education, which she would have never done a season ago, you know, like I said. And Cody says, no, I'm going to put you and your priorities over mine, and say that you have to go to Yale because it is what you need. It's what's going to be best for your education, your career, which he is valuing for once, you know. And so we still know that they're going to be together, but we don't really know what the future of their relationship is. They say the big L word. They're in lesbians with each other. They say that they love each other. And so we know that they're staying together. They don't break up, because it was kind of floated around that like they might break up because they're not going to the same school together. But no, they're staying together, and we just don't know what's going to happen with Cody. So I would like to assume that they would do, if we're going into speculation territory, I would like to assume that they would do a Boy Meets World kind of situation, where like Topanga, I think, goes to Yale, and then he becomes like the housewife, you know, and he kind of gets very emasculated and gets a little bit lame. They have a lame, you know, 90s conversation that is very unproductive, where he's like, he like struggles to get a job, and he feels inferior in the relationship. Pretty boring stuff. I haven't actually seen most of Boy Meets World. I've only caught like a couple episodes on reruns, but anyways, I would like to assume that like Cody would like try and get a job in the area, and he would live with Bailey or something, right? He'd live in the area with Bailey. I don't know. That might be fun. I think what the speculated like continuation would have been was that they would have gone to like, I don't know, they would have gone somewhere to like California or like Florida or something, and gone back to a different hotel and like worked, like the two of them, Zach and Cody, would have like worked at a hotel together. And then they would have met like a new spunky young kid who would be like, they would pass the baton on to him, and it'd basically be back to a pilot. Like they'd be in a few episodes, but the show would actually be about this kid, you know. So that's an idea. That was an idea, I think. I can confirm that in a later episode. But yes, their relationship is left open-ended on purpose, but love prevails. How sweet is that? There's definitely more I could say about this ending, about the finale. They have a quite sweet moment in the prom episode, even though most of it is Cody helping Woody, wanting to get with Addison. I don't know if I have a full episode of their relationship in me. Maybe when I talk about Woody, it'll get a section. Maybe if I make an episode about Woody, I don't know. Again, I don't know if I would probably have a full episode just about Woody, but it would have to be about all those little segments, because I don't think I can make a whole episode just on like a segment of him, you know what I mean? Because he is a tertiary side character at the end of the day. I think that's pretty much all I have to say. Like I said, they have some sweet moments together in the prom episode. Their conclusion to, you know, Bailey doesn't find Cody funny is just kind of, they just kind of wrap that up real quick, where it's like, they have a classic sitcom ending, is what I call it. The classic sitcom ending is where they don't really resolve things, but the characters say some fluffy, like, resolving statements to each other, and then the audience goes, "Aww," and then they hug, and then it's just over, and they just don't deal with it anymore. Like, it's not, like, necessarily concluded. What they end up doing is that Cody gets like suffocated by a boa constrictor, and it makes Bailey laugh. So it's like, yay, he made her laugh, but it was just from his suffering. Maybe we should look into the fact that Bailey might be a sadist, but you know, that's besides the point. So that's about all I have for this episode, y'all. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was still good and entertaining. I kind of had a panic when I said, oh, I'm gonna make a whole episode just on the ending of the characters, and then I looked at what we had to talk about and I noticed it wasn't much. So I'll definitely talk more about the finale in the future, because I might make an episode about London. We'll have to see if people have interest in that. I might make an episode about London, and I think her arc, they do a good job of resolving her storyline. Obviously it's not given a lot of time. I feel like when people think of like good resolutions, they think of like giving this huge, big, long chunk of time to the character, and they don't do that because the finale has to, you know, tie up a bunch of things. It has to bring back old characters like, you know, Zach and Cody's parents and Arwen and stuff, and it has to deal with them tearing down the ship, and it has to deal with London trying to pass her class, and you know, Zach and Maya, Cody and Bailey, Woody and Addison, and then Zach and Cody. So there's a lot of stuff that they have to do in the episode. So maybe London is only given like 5 or like maybe 8 minutes of screen time, but she's still, I think they do a perfect job of wrapping up her storyline. And I feel like there's a lot of misconceptions about London out there that I would love to dispel. So we'll have to see. I've been primarily talking about On Deck, and I haven't really been talking too much about what went on in The Sweet Life of Zach and Cody, just because a lot of it actually hasn't pertained too much to The Sweet Life on Deck, which is very interesting. But if I were to talk about London, I would have to, of course, go back to her origin story, because she's a very different character at the beginning of the series than she is at the end. So I would definitely want to look at all 6 seasons of her character, for sure. Next right away episodes are going to be, I don't know in which order they're going to be in, but I will be talking about the origin of the Cody and Bailey relationship. So their season 1 and season 2 arc. Not much is present with them in season 1, obviously, because they are not together, but Cody is actively courting her, right? And then them actively being together in season 2. That'll probably be 1 episode, or not, we'll have to see, but that will be happening soon. And then the section of the Disney High book, it's been a running joke now that I never actually have it in my hands, and I'm just gonna get up and grab it for once. Where is it? Here it is. I haven't unpacked it from my suitcase yet because I was reading it while I was on break. Here it is, Disney High, the untold story of the rise and fall of Disney Channel's tween empire. Did I get that right? Hell yeah. Ashley Spencer wrote this book, Disney High, and I've been reading it. I'm about halfway through it, but I got to the Zach and Cody chapter, and that kind of stalled things because I knew immediately that I had to talk about the Zach and Cody chapter on this podcast. So I'm a little bit over halfway through the Zach and Cody chapter, and I'm going to finish it and make a whole episode about it. So I don't know which one will be coming out first. Scared the shit out of me. I think someone just fell down the stairs. So those 2 things are impending, and we're going to talk about non-on-deck related things as well. My previous episode was about Teen Beach Movie, specifically how I actually really like Teen Beach 2, and how all of these thoughts came about because there were rumors, there's been, you know, whisperings of the fact that they're gonna make a Teen Beach 3, a requel, if you will, because there's no way any of the original cast is coming back. So I made a whole episode about that. I talked about that. And I'm definitely going to want to talk about different things, maybe different decoms specifically. I'll be honest, okay, I don't like to usually spill. I like to keep a little bit of secrecy because sometimes it may not happen or not. But if you want to leave a comment maybe telling me what I should do for this, I would love to hear it. I specifically have been debating how I want to talk about the Zombies franchise in a long form video somewhere on the internet. Whether or not I make it its own fully scripted video or I make it multiple podcast episodes here on the channel, on the side channel, in the School on a Boat podcast. The thing about the content is that it will be like directly political, because I think to talk about zombies in the way that I want to is to talk about the like race politics of it all, because I feel like that's the most potent thing that I have opinions on that I'd like to share. And I don't know if you guys want the podcast to necessarily be a space for that. They would definitely be more researched episodes of the podcast, that's for sure. But like these ones are like, I watch the episodes, I write down my thoughts, and then I say them, you know? But that one would be like, I reference this book, and I like have a lot of more deeper research done. So I feel like it would fit better in a video essay that I would write. But I would also be willing to make podcast episodes because that would be honestly better for my mental health, because the Zombies franchise is quite a beast. And so I feel like making the School on a Boat podcast episodes would help dampen it a little bit, but it probably would make more sense for like SEO and algorithm and clickbait or whatever to make them video essays. So we'll have to see what I do with that, but just know that I'm thinking about talking about zombies on the internet. So other than that, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Make sure to like and subscribe. This is the Side Channy Chan, so make sure to subscribe to me on my main channel. I'll have it linked below and in the end screen. So yes, thank you so much for watching, for listening, and I will see you guys next time. Bye. I feel like I've looked so exhausted this whole episode because I took a nap before it and everything just went